Sarah Croxford. I'm an accessibility and digital health champ at Microsoft. I care passionately about the role that technology has to play, particularly supporting the needs physically, emotionally, mentally, and across neurodiverse individuals. And I want to use technology as a way of helping people right across the world in order to have and live the lives that they can lead. And I think for me, one of the parts I wanted to really focus on today was the stories that are out there, the people that make the difference, the people that are using the technology and the impact it has. So I know Toni, or have met you, gosh, many years ago when I first started at Microsoft. Probably, gosh, I mean, we were merely teenagers at the time. Must
So
be 12
young.
years ago. Um, but I just wanted to catch up with you because when we spoke last, your story really hit home with me. And I just thought it's such a powerful story to tell, and it would be great to share that with everybody.
Yeah.
But before I do that, do you want to just do an intro in terms of who you are and your role and what you do and your background?
Okay, so I'm Toni Kent and I'm a professional speaker, compere, do a bit of stand-up, do a bit of ghostwriting for tech leaders, which is good fun. And that kind of ties into my background. So I spent good 20 odd years in the tech industry. I worked for resellers, distributors, software vendors, and then I did spend 10 years at Microsoft as partner account manager before leaving to pursue new interests, which was about 9 years ago. So still involved in and around the tech industry, but much more in a writing and performing capacity.
Excellent. Is that how you learned your humour from being at Microsoft?
No, yes, a little bit of both. I do have some material on that.
Okay, we'll talk about that in another podcast and do that on a separate one, shall we?
Yeah.
But as I say, tell me a little bit more around, the reason you came to me and the conversation that we had. Give bits of viewers background in terms of why and what it's all about.
Yeah, so I guess like you, a couple of things that are really important to me. One is social mobility. It's massive for me and forms a lot of what I do and why I do it. And accessibility is also something that's important to me. And I saw what you had been sharing on LinkedIn about how you felt it was important to talk about the role that technology can play in helping people to live fuller lives,
Yep.
and how technology shouldn't be exclusively for the benefit of large enterprises, for example. And I've noticed a kind of a change in the way that technology companies talk about what they do, and it's a really welcome change. And I have a brother who is very disabled, and I had an experience involving the use of Teams, and I thought, okay, this is something that I haven't heard spoken about, and I felt that perhaps it was a story that people might like to hear.
Excellent. Sounds good. So tell me a bit about your brother and tell me a
Yeah,
bit more about him.
yeah. So Sam is my youngest brother. Think about that. Got a few, and he's going to be 30 tomorrow. And when he was born, I was present at his birth. I was my mum's birthing partner. And when he was born, I remember at the hospital, it took ages for him to scream, to breathe, and thought something might be wrong. And he had to have a blood transfusion. And it turned out that he was diagnosed as having Down syndrome. And so throughout his life, it's been sort of difficult for him. And he has some other complex needs as well. He can't articulate himself very well. He stammers, he has learning difficulties. But over and above all of these things, he is absolutely resolutely a cheerful human being. And throughout his life, he has been in foster care. He has lived in different settings that are there to support young people. And today he lives in a supported accommodation. So he shares a house with 3 or 4 other men that have different disabilities, and they have 24-hour round the clock support from professionals that are there for their physical, emotional and healthcare needs. And he lives about an hour and a half's drive away from me. So he lives away from his family.
And did you get to pre-COVID? Did you get to see him a lot? Was there, you know, the interaction?
So we talk on the phone because he loves a chat, and occasionally, so I might see him once or twice a month if he was visiting my mum's house. And yeah, so we're in contact with him, and I think for him, being able to see people, see his family, be around them is really important to him.
Yeah, and so I mean, obviously, COVID comes along, February, March timeframe, lockdown hits. I mean, what was the impact for you as you and your family? What happened?
So that became difficult because we couldn't go and see him. He was supported to visit my mum because there was the trade-off between what's in his best interests and what was in her best interests. She had a lot of health problems as well. Wearing a mask is difficult if you have breathing difficulties, which you know, he's he's a big lad. And he's got small nose and he finds it, you know, hard to wear a mask all the time. But I've seen him twice this year, so it made a big difference.
Yeah, I can imagine that was quite a tough time, but I think things took a little bit of a turn, didn't they, over the last sort of 6 months or so as well, with COVID coming along. And you talked briefly to me about your mum. If you don't mind sharing with people today what happened, and what the impacts were.
Yeah, so in May, my mum died, and she had been very ill for a long time, but it was sudden, big shock, very unexpected. And that presented all the problems that everybody else who has been through this during COVID will have experienced. So we could not come together as a family, could not all go to the hospital, and you know, funeral arrangements, all of those things became much more difficult. But primary for me, the first thought for me was, how am I going to tell him? Because we could not go and see my brother and be with him. So I mean, when someone dies, you spend a lot of time on the phone, don't you? So after making the round of phone calls, I called the care manager at the place where he lives, and he'd only been there for 2 weeks. So he had had a recent move. And I said to the care manager, I don't even know what we're going to do. I don't know how to address this. We need to tell him, but given the needs that he has, we weren't sure what his level of comprehension would be, and how he would react. So he's in a new setting, and the worst thing that could happen for him has happened.
And for you as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of the worst thing happens. And what was fantastic was, so the staff were like, we need to contact social services, we need to contact the mental health team, we need to contact all these different agencies, because the one thing that you cannot do is withhold information like that from somebody if they have the comprehension to receive that news. And in some ways we were lucky because it was established that he wouldn't have the necessary comprehension to take that on board immediately. So it gave us a small window to plan. And I can tell you what happened.
So this is yeah, as I say, I can imagine that was bringing just everybody together is quite difficult anyway in a physical environment, let alone you're now plunged into this virtual environment as well, where you can't get everybody together face to face. Because I mean, my guess is that would have been hard enough anyway. But to actually now get into that place, what did you do next? What was your next steps?
So that was, I think everybody went, what are we going to do? And I guess to kind of share if this had happened outside of COVID, so my experience of attending multidisciplinary meetings, because that's what you have to have, they take a very long time to organise. If you're dealing with, and even in a corporate environment, if you're trying to bring together, let's say 9 people in one physical place, all of whom have different responsibilities, different jobs, different workloads, it's going to take you a long time to bring those people together. And even in an emergency, if you are dealing with people who, so in Sam's case, you've got care managers, social services managers, psychologist, behaviourist, all of these people could have another emergency that comes up because they're dealing with young people or families or adults with so many difficulties, and their caseloads are so heavy that you may arrange a face-to-face meeting and then someone doesn't turn up, or someone arrives 45 minutes late. So I was very nervous as to how we were going to address this. And then I think it was Hampshire County Council, because he's under their care. They have Teams, and they said to me, "Do you have Teams?" I said, "Yes, I do," as a former Microsoft employee. I'm Microsoft all the way. And they set up this Teams meeting to happen within, I think it was within 48 hours, because there was a weekend. But anyway, we managed to get 9 people on a Teams call on time at the same time. And that was, me, all of the people that are involved in Sam's care would have an interest in his care. And we were all in our own homes. And it was incredible to me that despite everything that was going on, and it would have been lovely to be in the room with people, because I think people want to express their sympathy and their sorrow, and they can't in the same way that you would do face to face. But to bring a group like that together so quickly, for me, is like, that doesn't happen. It was incredible. So from that, we were able to use a private channel as well, because I know, you're discussing something like that. There's lots of sensitive information. You want to be very mindful and protective of what's being shared. So we were able to use that. We could come together with a plan, which we all agreed, and a clear follow-up was sent. And again, I think my experience is, when you've previously had to rely on posted content, you can't wait 5 days for something to arrive. So yeah, we were able to come together, get all the relevant people there, and come up with a really clear plan. And that was in the middle of the pandemic. Nobody had to put themselves in a position of risk, and we were able to make a decision quickly that was in my brother's best interests.
That's amazing. That's great to hear. And from Sam's perspective as well, how, getting that team together and being able to support him, what difference did that make to him? How did he deal with it? Because obviously the news is, hugely traumatic anyway. But what was the outcome of that?
So we then agreed when it would happen. So we agreed that I would tell him, and that we would do that via video call, and that he would be supported by members of staff. So for me, it was really important to be able to see that he was being physically comforted, and that he could look at me and I could look at him, and we could read each other's faces. And because he can't articulate himself well, that overcomes some huge communication challenges. So there was benefit that he could see me and he could receive that news from a member of his family. I could see that he was being cared for and comforted, and everybody that could possibly help him, so however he reacted, was briefed and understood and was able to be there. So whilst for him it was, awful, it was done in the best possible way. And I suppose Yeah, I guess it was that, and he was in a familiar environment with people that he trusted, and he kind of knows that, you know, things are different with, you know, can't go to the shops and stuff like that. So he kind of got that, but he didn't have to go through it without having a member of his family there, even if it was via a screen, you know.
Yeah,
So
I guess it puts him at the centre of everything that's needed, the care, the support, everything he needs going forward as well,
yes,
which is
yes,
hugely important, as we know. So
yeah, yeah, and that's it. That's absolutely it. You said it so much better than I could. It is about putting him right in the middle of it,
mm,
right at the centre, and we were able to do that. Yeah,
I was going to say, I mean, it touched my heart when you told me the story, honestly, because it's just such a hard time. I can't imagine what you went through as a family, but you know, it's great that you were able to reach out, connect with him, and have that face to face, even virtual face to face, but that virtual you know, connection as well. So I mean, he's coming up to his 30th birthday, so that's hugely exciting for him as
yeah.
well. But you know, what does the future look like now for you both? What are you anticipating to happen next? How is he looking forward to his 30th, for example? And you know, how are you going
Yeah,
to share part of that with him?
yes. So we have been able to arrange. So we have to do things differently. We're going for a walk outside in a park. It's not quite what he had in mind. It's like, you know, we were all going to the pub and he was going to buy a drink. But we have managed to arrange that. So we're going to go and be socially distanced and have a walk outside. And, you know, we thought about, well, I can send stuff to his house, so that'll be lovely for him to receive. Um, and we've, you know, got other video calls that we do, so that's kind of nice. And we did get to do things like, you know, we arranged to meet at a garden centre to buy a tree that he could plant. So it's made us maybe think about ways in which we can stay connected in a different way, and how to make that meaningful and make that still work. So yes, he's very excited about his birthday. The build up starts about 10 months before.
Excellent. A bit like Christmas as well.
Oh yeah, he'll phone me up, he'll say, good news, Tony, it's my birthday soon. So yeah, we're looking forward to celebrating that with him.
Oh, that's brilliant. And it's great to hear as well some positive outcomes of what could have been, you know, a really, really difficult thing. And I think, you know, a call out to the staff as well, I think that probably supported you and the people that helped you through that journey. Because I think, you know, acknowledging the teams at Hampshire and everywhere else as well, and teams at the care homes and at various other places, I think, you know,
Mm.
it's a massive kudos to them to be able to step up and do that so quickly and to be so supportive as well, I think. Yeah.
If this had happened 10 years ago, like, but you know, prior to the technology that we have available today, it would have been very different, you know, if we'd had the pandemic then. So it does make me think that, thank goodness that we do have the technology broadly available across things like local government and healthcare authorities, or that it's easy enough for yeah, let's say, you know, a care home to access that doesn't have fiber to the premises and 12, you know, really high spec laptops. They just needed a half decent connection, and they were able to do that.
Yeah. What would your guidance be to people in a similar boat as you that are just, you know, needing to connect with people? You know, we come into a lockdown period as well, even over Christmas, and it's hard enough for
Mm.
people to connect with family, to connect with friends and people they love. What's your message to those people? How would you suggest they kind of go about supporting each other?
Um, well, I had it. One thought I had was that, I mean, we've really got to count your blessings, because it's um, you know, in many respects, many of us are extremely fortunate. Um, so that was one thing. I think
Mm,
it's to say, do you know what? It might be really hard next few weeks or the next couple of months, but actually we can find a way through it. We have got the benefit of technology. You know, let's see if we can figure out a way to use it. Um, and I think one thing that sort of struck me was humanizing the sort of stories that that are out there. So I'd love to hear more about how like technology impacts people at a very human level, and I see some of that happening. But I think even what I've discovered is that even in the worst of times, it can be really helpful and useful, and can solve some really big challenges. So maybe thinking about some of those worst case scenarios enables us to go, okay, if this worst thing happened, how would we work around that? How could we make that better, based on, you know, what we've now got access to? And well, so I did make some notes. You see, I did prepare. Yeah, I think that would be it. Yeah, count your blessings, and think about yeah, humanizing some of the stories of what tech can do.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, it becomes very almost transactional to a point. We forget about the people behind the screens,
Yeah.
and the connections that we have. And, you know, we talk a lot around, from a corporate level and enterprise level, around you don't have your water cooler, I hate that phrase, water cooler conversations anymore. And how do you really connect with people? But I think you just make it work. You find other ways to do it, and it becomes the right way for you as an individual and the right way for the person. I think, you know, regardless of backgrounds of, you know, where they are in their lives, whatever else is going on, I think it is being able to reach out and just connect with people through technology and making it accessible. And that's hugely important, is that we find a way to make technology create parity for people. And I think that
Yes.
is hugely important, that everyone can be treated in the same way, everyone can respond and connect in the same way. And I think that's, for me, is the message that I always take out of this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw something the other day actually. My friend's son is really colourblind,
Mhm.
and it's presented him with enormous problems. Didn't understand quite how big they were, and then I saw that you can, through one of the team at Microsoft still, Stuart, that you can adjust Windows 10
Yeah.
if you've got colourblind, and it just, I was like, why haven't we done this before?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
As I say, it's hugely, yeah. Just for
yeah.
reference to anyone who heard that, if you go to the ease of access settings in your search bar, at the bottom on the left-hand side of the screen, you can bring up a whole window which can help you change font, color, size, and just make things easier to read. And there's a whole host of other features built into all of Teams and Office and Windows and everything else that we probably don't do enough of a job shouting about as to how they can help people. And I hope over the course of the series of video blogs and various bits and pieces that we do over the next couple of months, that actually we should start to showcase some of those so people can go, oh, this is how I can make my life easier. And it doesn't, for me, it doesn't matter whether you need the accessibility or not. There's always things in there that can help you.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, there's definitely more we can do, I think, as a whole. So thank you, Toni.
Yeah.
And thank you hugely for sharing your story, because I know, you know, it's taken a long time for you to come to the table and say, actually, I want to share my story. I'm ready to share. So thank you. And thank you for giving me the honor of helping you to share that story as well. It's hugely appreciated. Thank you.
Oh, and thanks for having me. It's been great to see you, Sarah.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you.